talk is Jericho.
All right, we're back with Edge and Paul Heyman. Paul, let me ask you this. Did you have, this is the early 2000s, and as funny as it was, the business has changed so much now, and it was still old school enough there where there was a war behind the scenes politically. There was a lot of backstabbing going on. I mean, it was, for a long time. Did you get a lot of resistance because you wanted to push Edge and Jericho and Benoit and Eddie from the powers that be, from Vince and from those guys?
The funniest thing is when they split the writing team and Brian Gewirtz became the lead writer of Raw and I became the lead writer of SmackDown. SmackDown was facing cancellation.
Really?
Yeah. So Dean Valentine, who was the head of the UPN network at the time, SmackDown was really on the fence.
Yeah.
And all eyes were on Raw internally because the Raw ratings had dropped. Because this was now, we were getting into 2002. And once we got past WrestleMania, which was WrestleMania 18, in 2002, Raw's ratings had slipped dramatically enough that it became all hands on deck, all eyes on Raw. And my job literally was just to take SmackDown off their plate. Hey, listen, you don't have to worry about SmackDown. You don't have to stress about SmackDown. I got this covered. And you know what? I'll build up a bunch of guys for you that maybe you'd like to pluck out and deliver to Raw. Of course, once they started doing that, I didn't like it at all and got very defensive. But it was a way to keep them away from me at the beginning so I could set the table, so I could get these guys in the right, they're the famous SmackDown Six, I had Brock Lesnar, but Brock was on both shows.
Yeah. Because he was the champ.
Because he was no, not yet. He had just started.
Okay.
So
But SmackDown 6 was Edge, Benoit, Eddie, Ray, Chavo, and Angle, right?
Yes.
Because I was on Raw at that time.
Yes, yes. You moved over to Raw.
Yes.
Yeah, they ganked you after our deal got...
We had a big thing in the cage, and I remember they moved me to Raw after we had this amazing thing. It was you and Cena and Ray, and Vince moved you. I remember asking him, I said, Vince, do you like money? And he went, of course I like money. Then why are you moving me to Raw? This is going... We had such a cool thing going.
It was the first instance where I was like, these are two separate shows.
Yeah, and our show was killing it, but they moved me to Raw. I think that was one of the reasons, because Raw ratings were in a bad state.
They were moving you to Raw, and we were getting nothing for it. And I put up a huge fight.
Yeah, because they used to do trades.
Right. Yeah. And I put up a huge fight about it, and I was really, really angry. I was like, wait a second, how could you take this main eventer away from me? And... look at the momentum Edge is building, and it's not just because of Adam. You need someone to put that momentum on him, and Jericho is making this guy, and you're gonna take him away from me prematurely. And Vince says, "Well, what can I do to compensate you for that?" And I'm sitting there, and the general manager of SmackDown at the time on air was Stephanie. And I said, well, shouldn't Stephanie pull a raid? If Bischoff can pluck Jericho, why can't Stephanie respond with a raid? And who do you want? And he's thinking I'm going to say, one of the, like
Austin,
Stone Cold Steve Austin or somebody. And I said, well, you have Benoit and Eddie Guerrero over there as the NWO's whipping boys. They're the vanilla midgets. Give me Benoit and Guerrero. And everybody in the room laughed at me. Bruce Pritchard and Vince and half the TV guys that were in the room. They go,
and why laughing? Because they didn't think they had personality.
What do you mean you want Benoit and Guerrero? I said, don't really give me Benoit and Guerrero, because to them these were the NWO's whipping boys. What do you mean? You're going to lose Jericho, and you're asking for Benoit and Guerrero?
It's like a double whammy. Yeah.
No wonder Raw is the flagship show.
Yeah. And then I remember, because Rock and I worked them in a tag match.
Right.
I went with Eddie, Rock went with Chris.
Right. And I said, okay, here we go. Now I got Benoit and Guerrero on the show. So I can team Edge up with Ray. I can team the Guerreros together, and I can make Benoit and Angle my quote-unquote shooter tag team that doesn't get along, and build to more Benoit Angle matches. But what this bought me was, number one, Raw didn't really have a tag team scene. Now SmackDown has 3 tag teams that are just balls to the wall. I got Edge and Ray. I got the Guerreros. I got Benoit and Angle. But what this also buys me is a chance for all 6 of these guys to main event against each other. Rey Mysterio as a main eventer in WWE in 2002 was a fantasy. Yeah. It was unfathomable.
A joke,
But Rey Mysterio versus Chris Benoit, or Rey Mysterio versus Kurt Angle, or Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero was a possibility. And you have Chavo and Edge in the corners, or you have Kurt in the corner if it's Chris, or you have Chris in the corner if it's Kurt. So now I'm rubbing everybody up against each other. So you can have Edge versus Angle, or Edge versus Eddie, or Edge versus Benoit, or Ray versus Angle, or Ray versus Benoit, Ray versus Eddie versus,
possibilities are endless.
Endless. And you can put them in your main event because you have these 3 teams intertwined with each other, and it's a long-term program and it's storytelling. So if you build that TV show to that final segment, and the ratings were holding, and the ratings would work, so that by the time we are 4, 5, 6 weeks into the SmackDown 6 era with Benoit and Guerrero on the show, nobody's laughing because we're doing 3 6s and 3 7s against heavy competition from the final season of Friends,
Thursday nights,
Survivor,
the biggest night in TV.
And our ratings are just going through the roof, and we're doing real numbers, and the main events are holding on the minute by minutes, which we're obsessed over. And now all of a sudden Edge is a commodity, and Ray's a commodity, and Kurt's a commodity, and Eddie's a commodity, and now these guys are all becoming single stars based on the grouping together in that tag team scenario that really wasn't a tag team scenario. It was an excuse to feature them in the main events and make them all main event stars.
It was interesting, too, because we took it as a gang mentality. We were like, we're the show that can go. And we'll show every week why we're the show that can go. And it really did take it as a gang mentality to try and beat Raw. And I remember when I came back from my neck injury, I went to Raw, and I did not want to. I was like, oh.
As crazy as it sounds, there really was like 2 teams. There was Raw and SmackDown. I remember being on Raw, watching all you guys, and like, I want to be on those guys' team because ours was the talking show. Ours was the A show, which meant, I don't even know what that meant. Talking, a lot of promos, a lot of angles, and not a lot of wrestling time. Well, your guys' was the wrestling show.
Yeah, well, we were fighting for it. I mean, we bitched about everything. I mean, I wanted different agents than the Raw agents because I really wanted that. The only thing that I brought with me to SmackDown that was the same mentality that I had in ECW was us versus them.
Yeah.
SmackDown wasn't extreme. We did do one. We did a TLC match. We did the 4-way.
I remember that was the night after Triple H tore his quad.
Right.
It was a whole rewrite, and that was like the forgotten TLC. It was a great match, but no one ever talks about it.
Yeah, that's where Chris hurt his neck, and but I didn't do anything extreme on that show. But I did bring with me that us versus them. Vince wanted competition, and I wanted to compete with Raw. I wanted to whip Raw's ass. I wanted to make new stars. I wanted to get out of people what nobody else could get out of them. So I wanted different agents. Hey, here's a story. I mean, this was a bloody war. I would fly back on Air McMahon on Tuesday nights.
Vince's private jet.
And my only day off of the week was Wednesday. But I would come into the studio Wednesday nights and have Taz and Michael Cole, who hated me for this, I would have them revoice over the whole show. Because much like with Joey Styles and ECW, I knew certain things that I wanted said about the characters that would never have gotten through live at the event because it would have been micromanaged and second-guessed and overanalyzed. But I could get away with it in the studio in post-production.
Does Vince even watch the shows? I mean, he must not.
Well, It ended up that he started getting memos as to all the wild lines I was throwing in.
Oh, okay, of course.
And I was called on it, but I could defend them.
Yeah.
Why did you say this guy is a future Hall of Famer? God damn, he's just in a tag team. Yeah. But if we say he's a future Hall of Famer now, people are going to sit there and say, wow. And I'm seeing the emergence of him as a single star. That's an interesting point. It's clever marketing. You know, so by the time that they realized these little things that that we're throwing in, and we would always take jabs at Raw.
Yeah,
I would have Michael Cole and Taz take as many jabs at Raw as I could possibly get away with before there would be backlash against me. But what happened was that we were heading into SummerSlam, and there were two main events: Triple H versus Shawn Michaels, and Brock Lesnar in his first title match ever against The Rock. And about 3 weeks before the show, the first draft of SummerSlam comes out, and it's determined that Brock and The Rock will finish the show. And I looked at it, and I said, and I looked at the final notes. JR and Jerry Lawler sign off. And I looked at Kevin Dunn. We were on the plane flying back that night. And I said, well, this is a mistake because this is Michael Cole and Taz signing off. And Vince says, well, why would they sign off? I said, because that's a SmackDown match. You're not going to have your Raw team called The Rock versus Brock, are you? He says, well, JR and Jerry Lawler are our pay-per-view broadcast team. And Michael Cole and Taz are both on the plane. And Kevin Dunn says, yeah, your guys are the B team.
Right out loud?
And Jerry Lawler are the A team. They call the pay-per-views. And I turned to Taz and Michael Cole and I said, now you understand why I come in Wednesdays to the studio. And I looked at both Vince and Kevin Dunn and I said, this is a hill for me to die on. Michael Cole and Taz should broadcast The Rock versus Brock because, number one, they're the SmackDown team. Number two, I don't know how much JR and Jerry Lawler will know of the intricate storylines that we're telling on SmackDown about The Rock versus Brock. And number three, your Raw team is much like your Raw show. It's the B team on the B show, and it could be the personal favorite here as the flagship, but we're whipping Raw's ass in terms of viewership. We're drawing more on the split house shows. Our merchandise sells better. And unless you want a B team calling your title match, Michael Cole and Taz should close the show. And the heat on me for that was so huge. And when I showed up the next day at the studio to post-produce them, they were both on their game because now they realize, number one, they had a chance. And number two, if they had that chance, it was one chance to step up and to do it. And it came down to, like most other decisions, it became a day of decision. And we were fighting about it and fighting about it and fighting about it and passionately fighting about it. And Vince finally said, fine, your guys will close out the show and you just better hope they don't screw this up, And they knocked it out of the park. They really told a great story. And so that from then on, when the Raw matches were in the ring, the Raw team called it. And when the SmackDown matches were in the ring,
that's right,
the SmackDown announcers called it.
So we can thank you for seeing Michael Cole in a singlet at WrestleMania. I'm blaming you now.
Well,
horrible jailhouse tattoos.
I never booked him as a wrestler. I said he was an A-team announcer. Back then, with me post-producing him. Not that I have anything against Michael Cole. I love him, and he.
Shout out to Michael Cole.
Michael Cole.
And Tom, and Chad from the Hilton, and Pee Wee Starducci or whatever.
No. Birnbaum. Thank you. I almost said Guggenheim. You know what? Shout out to Pee Wee Guggenheim, too, as well.
Okay. Did